Hello everybody, my name is Nico, aka Neek. I'm a mixing engineer, and I mix for a ton of people, a ton of different genres, fortunately. I do this full time, I live in Los Angeles, and I'm going to be showing you a couple tricks today. Nothing crazy, we got a lot of videos ahead. But in the meantime, what I'm gonna do is show you one of my personal favorite plugins by Waves. Today, this song is actually my homie, Woody Pond. It's called Sidelines, one of my best friends. Woody, if you're watching, hey man. Thanks for letting me use your song, even though I didn't ask you yet. But I think you'll be cool with it, because you're my homie. But yeah, so what we're going to do, it's just a little part of his verse. And I'm just going to use a handful of plugins to try to show you, try to show you exactly how I would get it to the front. Make it just a little bit more clear in your face. And let's get into it. Here we go. So first, we got the waves looking huge. All right. So I'll just play it for you so you can hear where it's at. I have a trim plugin on to kind of control the level. I'll show you where I like the meter. I like it like kind of halfway when you play it. And then just the auto tune. That's all like dialed in already.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights.
All right, so for the most part, that is completely dry with no effects, just auto tune. A little bit of gain staging, but that's just volume. Okay, so the first plugin, and also this is not necessarily my vocal chain. Personally, for me, I switch it up with every song. So I have a lot of my go-to plugins. I use R compressor a lot, which I might use in this. I use SSLchanell a lot, which I'll probably use in this. Maybe this is my chain. Nah, we're not gonna go that deep. The other thing too is I actually route my vocals to bus tracks. So I'm never actually putting plugins on the audio unless I want to adjust that particular piece of audio, because everything is being routed to a send. That is something I'll go into later on, but for the most part, this is just a quick how to make your vocal sound good within 5 minutes tutorial. I guess that'd be a good like title for it, but I don't know. I'll think about it. But okay, first thing here. AudioTrack. If you don't know what it is, it's pretty much a compressor and an EQ in the same plugin. I like the old school look because I'm used to it. I'll keep the new one for the fans. Modern. Okay, so as you can see, this plugin has on the left side just a 4-band EQ, and then on the right side you have a compressor with pretty much all your settings and a gate. But I honestly don't use the gate. I just keep it down at the bottom. And in this plugin, if you just want to get your vocal sounding good right out of the gate, we'll reset it. This is what it looks like when you open it up. If you want to get your vocal sounding good right out of the gate, it takes like 2 clicks on this plugin. Just one click. Perfect. The classic compressor EQ preset is fantastic. And if you really look at it, what it's doing, it's turning your input down by 6. It's adding a little bit of low end to give you a little bit more thump, a little bit more body in the vocal, and then a little brightness at the top. And then what I like to do is turn that gate down. I'm not a huge fan of gates. I prefer just to do the gating manually in Pro Tools by clip gaining and fading and chopping and screwing and doing everything you got to do. But the main thing I want you to look at is the threshold, because when you first play, depending on the level of your audio, the compression is going to vary. So you really want to make sure that the threshold is actually compressing. There might be sometimes you put it on here and it might sound good, but really it's just increasing the audio by 6 dB.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow.
Okay, so we're getting around like 3 to 4 dB of compression right out the gate, and what this does, it kind of makes your vocal a little bit more tolerable right out the gate without you having to like put multiple plugins getting it to a point. I'm gonna go ahead and bypass it for you so you can hear what it sounded like before.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know.
Obviously, it's louder, but you kind of have to look past that, and you have to hear the fullness and hear how the quieter parts are getting brought up with the compression and whatnot. So I'm not gonna dive too much into it. Really, I don't touch anything on these settings. I leave the ratio at 4, keep the attack at 2, release at 30, bring that threshold down a little bit. Cool. So now what I like to do, now that the vocal's at a decent point, also, everything I'm telling you is specific to me, okay? There is no right and wrong way to go about this. Just throwing that out there. What I like to use is the SSLchanell right after. And what I do with this plugin is I kind of find the tone or the color of the frequencies that I like. I might do a little bit of subtractive EQ with it, but for the most part, I'll definitely do a low cut, maybe a high cut as well. But for the most part, I'm using the coloring of the EQ. I like how the EQ on the SSLchanell sounds a lot, so that's what I'm gonna be using it for.
It's what I think, but what do I?
Let's start with a little low cut. I try to keep it up to 100, and then after 100, I'm more likely to pinpoint the frequencies I want to take out, rather than just taking that whole high pass thing. High pass and low pass are really, really confusing.
It's what I think, but what do I know?
You're letting the lows pass through and you're letting the highs pass through. Okay.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to...
Great, so we got some of that low mud out. Looking like 107. All right, and then I'll do a little high shelf with the red knobs.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show.
Great, that's already sounding wonderful. Okay, and then for the green knobs, this is where like the real color is gonna come in. These frequencies are from 600 to 7,000 kilohertz. And between 2 and I'd say 6 is where you're gonna want to kind of figure out, even like 1K, if you want that more telephony sound. But what I'm gonna do is make the Q band right here rather wide. Whenever I do a boost, I try to keep it a little wider. Whenever I do a cut, I try to keep it a little bit more narrow. And then I might spike this dB up just to really hear the frequencies, and then I'll dial it back a little bit to see where it fits in nicely. Let's see here.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes.
Okay, so there's about 2 frequencies I like in this. It's kind of closer to that mid-rangey and then closer to the upper mids with like the 4,500 5K boost. So what I'm gonna do is right now I'm gonna go for the higher 5K boost, and I might use another EQ to bring out some of that mid-rangey 1 to 2K range.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink.
Okay, so that sounded pretty good. Now with the blue knobs, one thing to look at, it's kind of where I attack like the muffliness, the boxiness area between 2, 5, 600. Honestly, the default set at 5, yeah. And if you spike this frequency, it's probably gonna sound boxy as hell.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and golden might grow, but now we're caught in freezing cold.
Yeah, that sounds great. You literally pull out a little bit of that mid-range right at 500. Now, if you're confused, you look at this plugin and you're like, what the hell are all these knobs? Let me just try to break it down for you real quick. If you hold shift, you can look at multiple plugins in Pro Tools. Okay, so let's say this red band. All this red band is simply, oh, that's at 3, whoops. Okay, so it's at like 9K. This is what it looks like if you're using like a graphical EQ. Yeah. Boom. Boom. These green knobs, this would be like here. And it looks like we're doing like a 3 dB boost. Probably a little, maybe something like that right there. And then like the mid-range dip would be looking like this right here. Very slight EQ moves, but so this blue knob is the one. The green knobs represent the 2 boost, and then the red knobs represent the high shelf. So that's simply all it is. I'm actually going to leave this plugin up because now what I'm going to do is go in and kind of pinpoint some more disruptive frequencies that I think don't need to be there. Another trick too, if you want to add a little bit more compression or maybe tighten up what you did with the SSL channel, is to use the built-in compressor that it has at the top right here. I will show you that now. One thing I like to do is turn the threshold all the way to the right and then just keep this release close. It keeps the vocal super up front. And then bring that ratio up a little bit to where you get some bumps here. I'm pretty sure I saw that in a YouTube video before. I kind of like how it sounds. I got used to it, so fuck it. Oh, I don't know if...
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and gold in my...
Oh, last thing. On the SSL channel, I'll normally do a low shelf as well, around like 200. So when this is off, when this bell is off, it's a shelf, and then when it's on, it is a bell. So a shelf is just like brings down everything flat. And I like the low shelf a lot because a lot of times when you do the compression with the fast release, it brings like those lower mids like up a little closer to you, as like a fast release does. So this kind of combats that a little bit.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night.
All right, let's hear where we're at.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show.
Awesome. Great. So now we're going to use a Q3. You can use like a Q4, 8. Actually, I'll use like a Q4 in case we have more moves we want to make. But now what we're going to do is kind of listen to frequencies that may be a little disruptive to the instrumental.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive.
And I gotta be honest, there's not a lot of frequencies I'm hearing where I'm like, oh man, this is ruining the vocal. When it comes to like subtractive EQ, I'm pretty picky about it. I try not to EQ too much because I like to keep most of the integrity of the vocal. When you start EQing a ton, you're taking away really what is the vocal.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and golden might grow, but now we're caught in freezing cold and white snow. Oh, I don't wanna get myself into something. I don't wanna rip your heart right open. I don't wanna be that guy, but I'm just a bad guy. It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes.
Great, that sounded pretty good. So yeah, we just did a little bit of chops. Kept it very modest. Like I said, I really, like, no matter what plugin I'm using, I try not to dominate the sound with one plugin. AudioTrack's doing a good bit of the sound, but it's really just some compression. Now what I'll show you is some final plugins that you can use. This is really, what I like to do as well is have my first 2 or 3 plugins be the foundation of my mix. Something like, I really don't go back on them after I set them to an extent. And it takes me a while to really get them dialed in. But this is just a quick way to get something sounding good. So now what we'll do is throw on another compressor and a de-esser, maybe some reverb, and I'm gonna call it. Here we go. I'm just gonna use this compressor because you know what? I really enjoy it. I don't really use it that much, but it's Rvox. It's super easy to use. You don't really have a lot of like creative control with it because there's no attack and release. It's pretty much the further down you pull this thing, the harder and more intense compression it's going to get. It really does bring the vocals pretty up front. You may have to EQ out some more lows, but for this auto-tuney, long singing, it kind of works. So I'll play it.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely...
Now when you do it, it's going to add gain. So it really just bring down the compression and then bring down the gain because it's like reverse makeup gain. It's like adding the makeup gain for you, so you kind of just want to turn it down.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know.
Wonderful, and I'll go ahead and throw a little de-esser on.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and golden might grow, but now we're caught in freezing cold and white snow. Oh, I don't wanna get myself into something. I don't wanna rip your heart wide open.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's sounding great. All right, so I have a ton of sends already set up here. What I'll do as well is I'm just gonna add a little bit of reverb. Let's see what verb we got. I have all my sends hidden over here. Okay, using Valhalla Room for the sake of the video, I'll just use a Waves plugin. This is a Dave Pensado trick for Pro Tools. He puts the MV2 compressor. I like it. It makes the send sound a lot better. But he puts it before and after.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and golden might grow, but now we're caught in.
Wonderful. I'm not going to get into reverb time, so I'll probably do a whole video about that.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow.
All right, we'll do a little bit of delay, and I'm probably going to wrap it up. I got some stuff going on here. We'll use H delay. I like it.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and golden might grow, but now we're caught in freezing cold and white snow. Oh, I don't wanna get myself into something. I don't wanna rip your heart wide open. I don't wanna be that guy, but I'm just a bad guy.
Wonderful. So what I do when I'm doing my reverbs and delay, I turn them up pretty loud just so I can hear the timing of them, where they're sitting in the mix, and then I'll dial it back. I don't know if that's like proper or not, but that's just what I do.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word.
All right, so let's go ahead and duplicate this. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off all the plugins. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to do more videos like this and try to dive in a little bit more specifically on certain topics. And feel free to let me know what you want to see. Still really trying to figure out what videos I want to make. So all the help would be greatly appreciated. All right, so what I'm going to try to do is just match like the volume so you don't get a volume difference.
On the drive home, you try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know.
Bring this up a little bit. So here's like the completely dry one.
It's what I think, but what do I know? You barely said a word on the drive home. You try to hide your crying with the lights low, and we both know how that goes. I had too much to drink up at the night show. My memory is looking like a slideshow. I thought something green and golden might grow, but now we're caught in freezing cold and white snow. Oh, I don't wanna get myself.
Boom, there it is. To me, this sounds really clean. You're not making anything dramatic. Everything was done very slight, precise. Don't overthink the stuff too much. Now, I'm not adding any, like, I normally do like a coloring aspect. I might do a parallel compression, add some doubler. But for the most part, this is just a simple, quick, easy way to get your vocals sounding clean, smooth, to a point where you can just adjust the volume and it should fit into any track you make. Thank you all so much.